When you start looking at high-end gaming rigs, the first thing that pops up is the price tag, and the temptation to go for a cheaper pre-built or even a DIY compromise is strong. I've been there buying a budget system that seemed like a good deal, only to watch frame rates tumble the moment I pushed into a modern title, and then realizing I'd spent a weekend reconfiguring everything just to get something decent. That regret is why I wanted to see whether the ASUS ROG Strix G700 actually feels like a smarter buy instead of another flashy spec sheet that fizzles out once you fire up a game. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The G700 isn't just any PC you throw a graphics card into. It's built around Intel's 15th Gen Core Ultra 9285K, a chip that promises up to 6 GHz turbo. In practice, that means you have more headroom for CPU-heavy games like Cyberpunk 2077 or simulation titles where the physics engine can chew on every core. Pair that with 128 GB of DDR5 RAM, and you're looking at a machine that can keep dozens of browser tabs, a game client, and a streaming overlay all humming without the slightest stutter. The memory amount is overkill for most gamers, but if you also do video editing, 3D rendering, or run a small server for mods, that capacity becomes a genuine convenience rather than a vanity number. Storage is where the G700 really tries to differentiate itself. A 1TB NVMe SSD handles your OS, games, and any active projects with lightning speed, while a massive 20TB HDD sits beside it for the archive of recordings, textures, and old game libraries you don't want to delete. I've seen a lot of pre-builts that either skimp on SSD space or force you to buy external drives for the extra room. With the G700 you can install the latest releases Elden Ring *, Starfield, Doom Eternal on the SSD for instant load times, and still have room for a massive collection of indie titles, mods, and media without ever reaching the disk full warning. The downside? The HDD is a traditional 7,200 revolutions per minute drive, so you'll notice slower access if you try to run a game directly off it, but because the system is set up to prioritize the SSD for active workloads, that trade-off is rarely noticeable unless you're deliberately loading from the big drive. Graphics-wise, the system ships with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX card that carries 8 GB of GDDR6 VRAM, and the driver stack reports a total of up to 16 GB of video memory when you factor in system RAM sharing. For 1080p and solid 1440p play, this card hits 100+ FPS in most current titles with high settings, and it even holds its own at 4K if you dial back a few shadows. The real practical strength shows up when you enable ray tracing or DLSS. In Control, the ray-traced reflections are smooth, and the DLSS 3 upscaling keeps the frame rate buttery without sacrificing visual fidelity. That said, if you're a competitive gamer who lives on ultra-high refresh 240Hz monitors, you'll find the 8 GB card a bit limiting in the most demanding esports titles when you push max settings. You'd have to compromise on texture quality to stay above 200 FPS. Connectivity is another area where the G700 feels future-ready. Wi-Fi 6E brings the triple-band, 22 antenna setup that can actually sustain gigabit speeds if your router supports it, and Bluetooth 5.3 ensures low-latency connections for peripherals. The rear I/O panel includes multiple USB-C ports, a couple of USB-A 3.2 ports, HDMI 2.1, and DisplayPort 1.4, so you won't need a hub for a dual monitor rig or a capture card. I've personally plugged a 144Hz monitor, a mechanical keyboard, a VR headset, and a high-speed external SSD, and everything just worked out of the box, no driver hunting required. Now, who should actually consider spending on this machine? If you're a serious creator gamer hybrid, someone who streams, edits footage, and wants to jump into the newest AAA releases without juggling external storage, this is a compelling package. The massive RAM and storage make it a one-stop shop for both entertainment and production, and the RTX card's ray tracing capabilities let you showcase your content in the most visually impressive way possible. Small indie development studios or home-based streamers will also appreciate the ability to run multiple virtual machines or containers for testing, thanks to the CPU's many cores and the generous memory pool. On the flip side, if your gaming is limited to older titles, or you mostly stick to esports at 1080p with a focus on ultra-high frame rates, you might be overpaying for resources you'll never tap. The 128GB of RAM is far beyond what a typical gamer needs, and the 20TB HDD is an excellent archive but not essential if you rely on cloud storage or external NAS solutions. Additionally, the system's size is a full tower form factor, so it won't fit a cramped dorm room or a minimalist home office where a compact mini PC would be more appropriate. One hidden trade-off is heat and noise. The Core Ultra processor and RTX GPU together generate a respectable amount of heat under load, and